So let's make sure we understand both interval notation and what these expressions with absolute values mean. So first of all, A, we want to describe all real numbers x such that the absolute value of x is strictly less than 3. So what's the absolute value of x? Well, it's the distance between 0 and x. So we're looking for all points such that the distance between 0 and x is strictly less than 3. So in this case, let's draw a number line first. I think it's a good idea to do this. Let's mark the point 0 because it's kind of our central position. And what are we doing? Well, we're looking for all positions which are, as I said, distance strictly less than 3. So let's mark the two positions which are kind of the furthest away you can be almost. So let's mark 3 here, and let's mark -3 here. So I'm marking these for the following reason. If I was to take any position and it's within this bound, right, so between -3 and 3, then the distance, or the length of this kind of red line, if you want, is certainly going to be strictly less than 3. If I get any further, though, that length is going to get bigger than 3, so it wouldn't work. So what does this mean? Well, this means if I'm marking all positions that work just on the number line, what I have is everything up until these points 3, and not inclusive of 3. So then we'll do a circle, which is hollow. So that's what I'm getting as a kind of a drawing on a number line. What does that correspond to in interval notation? Of course, it's -3 to 3, open interval, not inclusive of 3 or -3, because I'm strictly less. Let's do the next one. So this is the statement that the distance between x and 2 is less than or equal to 1. So let's draw basically exactly the same picture. But now, what do we have? Well, in this case, we have 2 as my central location. So I'm trying to think about positions which are a certain distance from 2. So if I have, let's say, 2 here, we don't need to have the same scale as the one above, but I'll keep something vaguely similar. So what am I interested in? I'm interested in positions which are distance less than or equal to 1 from 2. So the furthest kind of points I think are going to be at 2 + 1 and 2 - 1, which is at 1 here. So if I'm drawing an interval, same kind of story, I think basically I need to be, so I can't get any further than 3 on this side or further than 1 on this side, otherwise I'd be too far away from 2. So it's the same story, except there is a difference this time, namely it's less than or equal. So that means it's perfectly possible to be equal to these two endpoints. So this is different than the first. So in this case, we're going to have dots, but they're going to be solid. So in interval notation, what is this? Well, we can see it's 1 to 2. Let me just bring it back to kind of the general result, remember? So the general result is to do with kind of the central point plus or minus the distance. So this is going to be equal to 2 the central point minus 1, 2 + 1. But I've made a mistake. It shouldn't be open, it should be closed, because of the fact it's less than or equal. Very important, easy mistake to make. And this now is what? Well, it's the closed interval from 1 to 3. Now, the last thing we need to do is C. C is a bit interesting. So this says the distance between x and 0 has to be strictly bigger than 5. So if I draw a number line again, and let's draw my central point 0. Okay, so we're interested in things which are distance strictly bigger than 5 from 0. So I think the 2 points of interest to us are going to be at 5 and -5. So I'm going to mark these in. So I'm using a slightly different scale than above. 5 and -5. So what's the deal? Well, exactly as I said, because of the fact it's greater than now, strictly bigger, I don't want to be close to 0, I want to be a reasonable distance from 0. So in this case, I basically am going to need to be, let me make this the same size, I'm going to need to be kind of outside, like this. Same over here. Okay, so I've got to be bigger, distance strictly bigger than 5. Now, could I be inclusive of these minus 5 and 5? Well, no, because it's got to be strictly bigger. So again, same story as the first example. It's going to have to be an open dot, not inclusive. So this one's a bit more interesting. Now what I have is kind of two intervals, if you want, a union of two intervals. You could be in either of these two and it would work. So the first one is going to be minus infinity to minus 5, not inclusive. And the second one, union 5 to infinity. So just as a general rule about this, it's a very good idea to draw a number line and mark things on it carefully. You don't need to do it every single time, and with a bit of practice you'll be able to kind of go very quickly to the interval notation, but it's just a really good practice to go through this, because the bottom line is you want to train yourself in thinking about absolute values in terms of distances, right? This is how you should be thinking about absolute values really at this stage, and this picture is such a useful way to do it.